Hello, I am Joyce de Winter and I'm the Exhibition Manager of Intertraffic. Welcome to you all and thank you for joining our first Intertraffic webinar. Today was supposed to be the first day of our Intertraffic Amsterdam 2020 event, so it's kind of symbolic to have our first webinar on this specific day. The Intertraffic community needs to stay connected and we would like to share some business cases and expert views with you. For instance, what kind of impact will social distancing that we're all dealing with right now, what kind of impact will this have on our world of mobility for now and in the near future? And as we cannot meet in person right now, knowledge transfer is even more crucial. Of course, we still want to inform you and keep you updated about all the developments going on in the industry. The first Intertraffic webinar will be led by Mr. Carlo van der Weijer, Director Smart Mobility of the Technical University of Eindhoven and member of the Intertraffic Advisory Board. Carlo will shortly talk you through all the topics. So I hope you will enjoy this webinar. And for now, Carlo, the virtual floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Joyce. Yes, indeed. As a member of the supervisory board of Intertraffic, I had the honor to moderate the opening session about 2 years ago at Intertraffic 2018. And actually, it's more or less again what I'm doing now at this very moment. Again, opening the Intertraffic 2020, but in a total different manner as we expected. Yeah, you all know what happened, that we had to cancel it. Is of course it's a big pity, but yeah, the world of mobility is changing maybe even faster as it was before, and there's a lot of discussion going on if this coronavirus timing will change mobility forever. A lot of people think that the entire society is now in the midst of a big reset, and that we will come out as a total different society as we moved into it. I don't think it's going to be that bad, at least if we find the vaccine, or in some way will we reach herd immunity in due course. Then I think a couple of minutes later we will turn to the exact same world as we have known it before. But that having said, I do think that we are experiencing some things that we currently see that we didn't consider to be possible, that might lead to some kind of change. So, for instance, if this fear of contamination that we learns out this moment, this distancing, it might remain there a little bit, and it might also refrain us from being packed as much as we have been in the last couple of years. The other thing is that we learned how to work from home. We're doing this now. This is possible. So far, the technology seems to be okay. And a lot of people thought it was not possible. A lot of conservative industries that didn't knew that it was possible. And maybe we could also learn that. And also takes away an argument for people to complain about traffic jams maybe in the future. And does this change mobility forever? And the other thing is, and a very interesting thing that I see happening, that in big cities all around the world, we see that because there are hardly any cars and people still want to move, you see that space is being freed up for bicycles and for people to be able to just walk around and use their biological urge for mobility. So we give them some extra space. Now, it's an interesting thing. Will they ever bring this space back to the cars, because everybody experienced how nice a city can be? Now, these are all things, and to my point of view, these are all trends that were anyhow happening, but it might be speeding up that we learned how to do it now, and that's some interesting stuff. It's actually all what Intertraffic is about, because the mission of Intertraffic is speeding up the mobility transition. Now, I'm here to talk to three distinguished and very knowledgeable people on the subject. And to answer already a first question that came in, we had a much better gender balance that we turned out, and we have to say sorry for that. The next webinar we will have more balance because somebody had to decline. So now it's a man thing, but it will be more balanced in the next thing, I can promise. But it was already a question that came in, because that's something that I would say. You can please come up with questions for the three people that will interview, or for me, as a matter of fact, because they will be moderated, and we'll try to get them into the interview. Now, of course, when a lot of questions will come in, that's going to be hard, but anyhow, we will make sure that these questions reach the people that you're going to hear, so that maybe in due course you can still set up a discussion with them and you will get an answer for that. So that having said the introduction, I would like to start with the first interview, the question for Aurelien Cottet. And we already saw him earlier on because we already did put his video on. So you might know already how he looks like. And if technology allows, then we will see him again. Aurelien is the Mass Initiative Coordinator of the Transdev Group. You know Transdev as one of the most experienced mobility as a service providers so far. And I still wait for the connection over here. I just bragged about all the technological possibilities, and here he is just in time. Aurelien, good afternoon.
Can you see me? Good afternoon. Hi, everyone.
I see you. Yeah, I see you, and I hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
So people start coming with the questions. I have a few here, because as already said in the introduction, Transdev is one of the leading mobility as a service providers. It's something that everybody already talks about for a large couple of years. And yeah, it's already there because you're already one of the front runners. But can you maybe elaborate a little bit on how the travelers will experience the mobility as a service already up till now, and what's happening, what the results and the insights so far, Aurelien?
Yeah, so just to go back on a little bit of history of Transdev, as you mentioned, we are one of the biggest public transportation operator around the world. We are more than 85,000 people in 30 countries. We were the first to invest in mass in 2015 because we were among the two first investors in Mass Global. That is pretty well known thanks to their application WIM. That is the still reference around the world of the mass operation. So since then, we invested also in Transair, that is a different kind of mass. Mass Global is more B2C. Transair is more for the long distance commuters, so between capitals, for instance. And we also launched in 2018 what we call Mulhouse Mobility Account. That is the first real mass first step in France. And we were supposed to launch also Movizy2, that is the mass application in Saint-Etienne. That is one of the big cities in France. So yes, we can say that we are one of the leader in the mass with the knowledge we acquired since 2015. So to come back to your question, it's important to understand that there are a lot of mass initiatives, projects around the world. But if we are talking about mass operations working as a daily services, I have to admit there are not that many. Mass Global is definitely the first one. Compte Mobilité Mulhouse is the second one. Zipster in Singapore is also one that we can say launched as an operation. But if we are thinking about what Denver is doing with Uber on the public transportation, is still a project. GLB is still a one-year project. That is a great thing to do to see in Europe. So I would say it's very difficult to give you a trend now because we are still at the beginning of a mass.
But can you say something about the total amount of subscribers at this moment within the Transdev consortium?
It's those numbers unfortunately are on the Transdev side. Yes, it's but mainly the interesting part is everyone who tried. 80% are keeping using the application.
Okay.
Very important to understand that not everyone is want to use their mobile to pay with their mobile. Mass, it's still a place where you can book your, do your itinerary, book your the itinerary on the mobility services you have chosen, and then pay. And that's another story. It took nearly 10 to 15 years to get open payment working contactless, just for 10 euros at your boulangerie, or even for paying online on Amazon. The next step is paying with your phone, and it's going to still take some years, depending on which country we're talking to.
Okay. Maybe on the subject of today, because everybody's talking about this future of mobility post-corona. We have two different things. You see, during corona, we see already a huge impact on how the transport streams are going. Can you already see something on the data and the usage of specifically mobility as a service? How is it reacting on the coronavirus?
First, the fact that people are confined, so that means they are not allowed to, at least in France, to walk more than 1 kilometers from their house. They're not going to take any transportation. So the public transportation right now is mainly used by people who do have the obligation to be mobile, like the people in the medical industry, health, delivery, police, every jobs that require to be outside. So yes, we see the numbers of our of the people who they used to travel with us dropping dramatically. That's the first thing. So mass that is using all the mobility services, shared micro mobility on public transportation are the same. It's true that the coronavirus put also a pressure on the over mobility. Who wants to use a share bike? You don't know who used it before you. Who sneezed in the taxi you may take before? Did this person put his hand with the virus on the handle of the door? This kind of thing. So yes, that has an impact right now, and will still have an impact after the lockdown is over, when the confinement.
So you do fear that this fear of contamination that people now have, which is understandable, that it also will remain at least for a little bit in the future?
Yes, let's be honest with that.
And is this a general bad thing for shared cars or public transport, or how does Transdev see this?
I think there is the interesting part of public transportation is buses has a capacity of average of 80 people. So it's easier to have only 20 people in the bus with a 105 meter radius to keep the social distance. It's going to be very difficult to have that in shared mobilities, especially in cars. So it's true that the public transportation will find a new way to work with less people, or at least the same amount of people, but spread during the day. Because we have to take into account that because of the confinement, a lot of companies decided to have their employee working remotely. So it's going to be easier after that to spread the number of people who need to be physically at the office. And they're not going to necessarily need to be, So if everything is thought now, they can, each big corporate can arrange the agenda and calendars of their employee to make sure that they don't need to be there from 8 to 10, to 8 to 7 p.m., but maybe just from 11 to 3 p.m. So we're going to be able to spread the peak.
So this is also a kind of flatten the curve, but then maybe the huge peak that we now have in traffic, that we can also spread that a little bit, and that also serves the public transport, which has extremely peaks. I can follow that. But do you also see on a very practical level that we're going to redesign buses, for instance, in order for people to have more space? Is that something that's already in your head at this moment on your planning?
Yeah, but it's very difficult. When you change the design of a bus internally, who's going to pay? It has a cost. So the question is, it's always a question of money. So how are you going to redesign a bus without touching the infrastructure? The answer could be also, having more buses all day long, and being able to create a system where unfortunately, you will have to reserve your place in the bus. And if everyone use this kind of technology, and that's going to be a positive side on the mass, because this could be a break in the mass. It's going to be easier for people to make sure that if they get in the bus, they will have a place with a 1.5 meter radius of security. And
okay,
at the same time, yeah.
So mass might also be to make public transportation more demand driven, then, as you say, that
exactly.
you have guaranteed places in buses,
yeah.
etc.
Yes.
So is this the future, that we have a total demand driven kind of public transport system?
It's possible that we're going to also use a smaller bus to make sure that we have enough bus to be able to absorb the demands.
Okay, so maybe not another question that also came in. Do you foresee that maybe because of this, that people will make a definite shift from public transport to private cars, because it's a less contaminated and a more safe space for people? Is this, of course, this is not the best message that you would like to hear, but it's a question that also came in and runs through my mind, that the popularity of an individual car might be risen because of this experience.
It's a fair question, it's not a bad question. It's a question that we're going to face, so we need to find an answer. Yes, I'm pretty sure people who could use their car, they will use it instead of taking the transportation. So the only way for us to solve this problem is first to try to find solution to make sure that each bus is decontaminated as maximum all the time along the day. To also inform what we do on why it's working to the people. So it's we'll have a lot of marketing and information to do for those people. Working also with big corporates and employers, it's going to be important too, because right now the air it's unpolluted. We haven't had this kind of air in Paris for years, so it would be bad to lose this opportunity to keep up and avoid that people will use their private car. I'm pretty sure also people will start buying
of course
bikes.
And
the private bike's gonna go up too.
Yes, that might be so the individual modalities, bike and cars, might be a winner in this one. But of course, an individual bike or car can also be a part of a mobility as a service.
Totally agree.
Say. So indeed, within the public transport, we might see a shift towards mobility as a service.
Yes, it's
so.
And as you
maybe a last question, because sorry, Nate, come.
No, go for it. Last question.
Okay, maybe a question is that what do you consider to be, apart from this might be a push to more demand-driven public transport, which is of course beneficial to the mobility as a service. Do you see any other golden eggs that might come in order to help mobility as a service grow further than it's already growing?
Yeah, so I think my answer is going to be in two times. The first time it's the next 2 years where people will still be very careful until a vaccine will be provided, because I think you will have to step after the COVID-19. It's the next few months, year and a half, and then when we'll have the possibility to no fear anymore of the virus. So let's talk about the first part. Unfortunately, a lot of micro mobility and shared mobility won't survive. So, but they're going to be saved by the government. So in a way, those services going to be public. We're going to go from private to public. And we know that one of the painful points of the mass is to make sure that the public and the private mobility services are integrated in the same platform. There, it's going to be easier to have everyone on the same platform. Why? It's because it's going to be a regulation from the top, so from the authority, and because those mobility services that are private going to be more public, it's going to be easier to do that. So after that, if you have more and more mobility services integrated with the mass, the second life of mass definitely is going to be there when the vaccine is going to be found. I don't know if I understood. Answered your question.
It is clear what you say, that there's a post-vaccine and a pre-vaccine era, and yeah, so I do see that we learned a lot that can be beneficial to also what's going to happen in mass. So in the end, the other effect that I already mentioned, the fact that people start to revalue space in urban areas specifically, because there's a lot of space being made at this moment, that in due course, the tolerance for all these cars in especially the high density cities will go down. And there might be a more push in order to create more room for less assets for bikes or for public transport, etc. And that's probably where you come in. So after the vaccine is found, etc., you might blow our minds with all your kind of solutions.
Yeah, I'm gonna add just I'm gonna have 2 points. Is because people who won't have a choice to take public transportation, they're gonna want a solution just to pay and have an ticketing. So I think ticketing is going to be part of the solution, because you don't want to have a smart card that touch the hardware, because even if it's contactless, you still more or less touch the hardware. So the ticketing is going to be raising a lot in the next few months, and that's one of the requirements for the mass. So that's a good thing. And the second thing is, because that's a good opportunity for the regulator to be able to put in place a rewarding policy versus a penalties policies. How to also help the public transportation? It's up to the government to put in place a system where if us public transportation ensure that the quality of the transport is safe, the people should take it. And for that, to make sure that it's working, we need government and public transportation authority to do that.
Okay, I think I have to because there's a loads of questions in my head still, but also at the people that
Definitely.
listen currently. As I already said to all the people, please keep on coming these questions. We will try to also bring them forward to you, Aurelien. You might be confronted with a tsunami of questions, but maybe it also starts a nice discussion with some of the other Intertraffic members of the community. So thanks all for the questions. Thank you for your input, and keep up the good work. We might need you even harder after the corona than before, and especially also here in the Netherlands, where public transport still is a very important role to get all these important people to the hospital and wherever we need them. So also thanks for that, and thanks for now. Hope to see you next time live. And with it, thank you, Aurelien. I asked the people to applaud now at home, but you probably will not hear that. And we can shift to the next person who's also very interesting on this subject, because he's from PTV, I think you say in English. Those are the people that have all the data. It's Paul Speirs that we're going to introduce to you. He's the global head of the pre-sales of the PTV Group. Hi, Paul. Welcome. I hope you hear me. Okay, and we can hear you well. Thank you very much for being with us. I know PTV also for a long time. I knew you have loads of data and very interesting data, not so much only on cars, but as well on pedestrians and public transport. So that's at least one of the solutions that you bring, but that's one of the most interesting where I know you of, and all the transport modeling that you do. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on what kind of data sources that you have and use for all these transport modeling?
Just for those who don't know who PTV are, we are a software developer company coming out of Germany. We specialize in the development of transport planning software solutions and logistics planning solutions, and we work our solutions work from long-term planning right through to real-time operations. So we really do focus on the movement of people and goods. So your question, what kind of data are we using these days to develop our transport models? I mean, aside from the usual network modeling that we need, which we normally get from suppliers like TomTom and Veer who make these, we also need to understand human behavior characteristics, never more so than now, because clearly we're all going through a change where we can reevaluate how we travel now and in the future maybe. But perhaps the most important one would be the network performance information that relates to traffic flows and speeds by proxy. You convert them into journey times and delays or congestion. So where do we get this information from? Well, traffic flows, typically we're not collecting it, but there are companies out there that collect it on our behalf from data sensors built into the road. Mostly, we just finished or doing a study in Amsterdam called Socrates, and we're collecting 3,000 data from 3,000 detectors in real time to give you an idea. Network speeds, generally we're getting those from a data supplier like Veer or Inrix, TomTom, and they're collecting from their sources GPS data, floating car data, to give us an aggregate value of what the speed picture looks like. I would just say that a last data source that's very topical is cell phone data. So there are companies that are collecting that, and they're sort of not tracking individual activities, but anonymizing it and aggregating it to pick up travel patterns.
So the very interesting question at this moment that probably already is: do you see on this data how the total travel behavior is already affected? Of course, we see what's happening, etc. But can you already see some conclusion on what's happening at this moment because of the crisis at this moment? What do you see in your data?
Yeah, actually, we did a study to try and visualize how the stay-at-home campaigns were having an effect. And I wonder if we can go to the slides. I don't know what I should press to turn them on. Could one of the moderators turn on the slides? Okay. So
here we go.
Here we go. Okay, so what we have here is a map of Germany, where we were provided data from a company called Teralytics, who are a Swiss company who have basically aggregated cell phone activity across the whole of Germany and allow us to map that activity. And what we did was compare Easter Sunday from last week against Easter Sunday of last year. And across Germany, on the left-hand side is the movement of vehicles on roads. And we had an average drop of 78% across the country. Now that's huge, a huge drop in traffic. The image on the right, which is showing the number of journeys coming out of each district or county in Germany, and the darker the green, the bigger the drop in journeys coming from those places. And you can see there's a huge bias in the southeast, Bavaria part of Germany, where I understand the measures were harsher, and the conforming and compliance of the public to those rules you can see them here. They're mapped out. Can we go to the next slide? How do I do that?
You just ask next slide, and it probably will run.
Okay, yeah, it's magic, isn't it? So this one here is not only are we able to map at an aggregate level. Here we can see some more details, and I've got two maps here. This is showing where people are traveling to from these districts, and the one on the left is a place called Görlitz, a district that borders Poland, and actually this is a border crossing point, so you would normally see quite a lot of activity through the border there, reaching right across the country, but that activity at one point completely stopped. There is some activity coming through the border now as we have to keep the supply chain moving. The other image is from Karlsruhe, which is where PTV is, but we have this information across the whole country to see where the drop in movements has occurred. Next slide. Oh, I love it. This one actually is a comparison of Easter Sunday last week with 2 weeks previous, so both under the conditions of COVID-19. And what we saw was an increase in traffic, actually. So people were doing some kind of movement. And the image on the right, the sort of shower that you see, shows although the traffic had gone up from that district, the increase in journeys were very localized, and the longer distance journeys typically had reduced. So it was showing very local movements. So we can get quite granular on the data, and this has been a good exercise to show where the public has conformed to the instructions of the government, or where the restrictions have been higher and tighter. The government or other leaders could use this sort of information in the future to see how their measures are working out. And we could also use it thinking forward as we start to unlock countries, as you open up, really remove some of the restrictions, whether it creates a new flood of activity or whether that can be controlled, because obviously we want to bring everybody back to normal in a controlled way that still allows us to contain the virus. That was my slideshow on that question. So we can remove the slides now.
Yeah, thanks. Incredible numbers, and how impressive it is. It's sometimes worse than you even expect, and of course it is kind of expected that it's low. We always see that. The question is maybe also on your experience. What do you think that will remain after this crisis? Let's also talk a little bit about that. Do you think we will all come back, or that we have learned something that maybe that all this mobility was a little bit exaggerated as how we did with the last decades? What's your impression on that one? What do you expect?
Well, I think there is going to be an underlying trend of normality coming back. Of course, we have to go back to work. Some people will not have the luxury of working at home, and we will all want to do some of the things we did before. But I think that there's been a huge reflection on what we used to do. I've seen quite a few surveys. You don't have to spend long on LinkedIn to see what's out there. Quite a few surveys of people saying that they think they want to do something different in the future. And there was a survey in the UK where I live, a national survey that was trying to get the mood of people's thoughts at the moment. And over 50% of people who responded said that they wanted to change something in their life because of this. And what those changes are, they could relate to diet, exercise, family, work-life balance, working at home. All of these things we're experiencing now at a different level than we did before. So you could imagine that some of our new habits could get locked in. I would say as well that it strikes me that it's a great opportunity for governments and policymakers to try and find out which good habits we could lock in now with some new smart policy measures. Of course, noting that governments are extremely busy in trying to tackle the virus and save people's lives and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe because we talked about all the data that you are tracing at this moment. You do have public transport data, you have a lot of car data. Do you also measure how bikes and pedestrians move along? Is that some way also to register that? Because that's, of course, also something that's interesting to see, at least in the Netherlands from the data I saw. We see a huge shift at this moment to biking and being a pedestrian, although I must say we have fantastic weather these days in the Netherlands. That might also help. But is there also a way that you get data from those kind of sources and modalities?
Not directly. We've seen people do some studies. We have a software solution that can do pedestrian flow analysis, and we've seen people using our software to show social distancing effects, crowding densities and that sort of thing, queuing for supermarkets. And we've seen this sort of stuff on LinkedIn. I saw something this morning coming from Porsche Consulting, actually, who had done some analysis on mode usage, mode share in Berlin, and they were showing that bike usage had gone up in Berlin by 8%. Of course, you do wonder if we're exercising a little bit more now, because we have this restriction that we're told we can't do something. So we have 1 hour a day in some places to go out and do something, and bike use is on the rise. That could be a lock-in, couldn't it? You know, in the future, we could lock that habit in.
Yeah, it is indeed. So, but you're the one who's going to measure it afterwards, so you're going to look more to your results as before, because that's the main question. Do you think, also on a personal note, that traffic will ever be similar as before?
I mean, the topic was touched on a little bit before with your previous questions. Will people shy away from public transport because of the fear of corona, the paranoia? If they do, will that increase traffic on the roads? It's a mug's game to try and predict this, if we're being honest. So I'm not so sure. I mean, I think most people will just go back to their normal, because they won't have the choices of doing something different. You know, not everybody has access to a car for their travel needs. And not everybody has access to public transport anyway. So, yeah, it's not a great answer for you, but it's quite hard to predict. I'm working with the London Transport Museum at the moment, and we're just about to commission a survey, actually, that's trying to capture people's habits from previous, now, and what they will do in the future. And we hope to report on this through the summer, how people's moods to mobility will change. And if we get a good enough response to the survey, and we can make some sense of it, we will try and reflect people's behavioral changes inside a real transport model, to see how those changes will convert into congestion relief or increase congestion, if in fact we see people moving away from public transport. So we're going to try and measure this in some small way to, you know, promote the debate, further debate and discussion on the topic.
That's anyway a good thing to do. And another question that came in from the public, and please keep them coming, people, but somebody asked, how lock in the good habits due to corona? So I see in all the question that a lot of people see the positive side of what's happening. Let's use it. So if we turn back to the normal world, we should first think about what is good enough in order to go back to. But what kind of good habits might be locked in?
I mean, a real obvious habit that could be locked in is working at home. We're all experiencing it now. And you might find that actually businesses learn to trust employees, that they can work at home and be productive in a different way. And, you know, you wouldn't need to have a dramatic shift in work at home behavior to see how that reflects on the network. So that would be one obvious thing that you could lock in. There are other human factors as well coming in. Where I live, it's reasonably rural. And I can see that there is a big support for local businesses that you can see will be struggling and may even disappear. And to keep those going as soon as we can, you wonder if that community spirit will help locking new shopping habits as well, which might reduce, you know, the online shopping that we see.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're working on the connection with Carlo. But maybe it's an idea, because we have some questions in the chat. So maybe we can answer some questions specifically for you. There is, for instance, there is a question, and the question is: it's interesting that that you have data from Teralytics. So, what's the added value for PTV?
The added value is, well, we're able to visualize the activity that's happening, and we're also able to process a huge amount of data to create those visualizations. So anything that's visual becomes more digestible for stakeholders to make their decisions, and with some confidence. So that's half the point of it, is to be able to present data in a way that allows stakeholders and decision makers to make informed decisions quickly.
There is another question. Is it possible to detect a micro scale to movement from day occupation to evening occupation?
Yeah. Yes, it is. The cell phone companies can disaggregate their data down to small time slices. You wouldn't want to go so small. You need the journey to complete, I suppose. But you can break that down to times of day and get that activity understood. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and I do see another very interesting question in here. Do you think that the transport demand strategic models that cities have developed for 2030 or 2040, do they need to be updated based on the COVID-19 scenarios?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is a drum I've been banging for quite a while now. Most of our long-term planning models, when I say our, I mean the industries, they're based on trend forecasts. So we're using historical patterns to project into the future. And even before COVID-19, it's been clear to me for the last 5 years that new mobility trends are changing the way we travel. Is giving us different choices of travel, different modes of travel, things that we couldn't have imagined a few years ago. Micro mobility, for instance, scooters everywhere. Our historical trends do not capture this, so we're not projecting them forward. So we have to think differently about how we create the forecasts of the future. And to be honest, having an infrastructure plan that stretches to 20 years from now is a little bit crazy in my view. Yeah, you need to plan for your investment and so on, but I think we need to think differently on how we create near future forecasts for sure.
Yes, there might
COVID is showing us this.
Yes, because maybe this is not the first virus that will attack us, of course. I see.
True.
Carlo is so, Carlo, the floor is yours.
I don't know what happened. This was not a sanitary break or something else, but I was just being kicked out, and it may be linked to the last question that we also saw passing by. That's on traffic on the internet and on the mail. Is this something that you also do? Because there was apparently a traffic jam that kept me from talking to you. But do you think that the traffic jams will go from the road to the internet, as I just experienced?
Yeah, I saw something nice on the internet this morning, actually, talking about a sustainable future and connectivity between people, and of course it has to include internet connection. This is so important in our lives these days. So this you could almost add that as another form of mobility in a weird way.
So it might be a new market to you to also study that one, but until that, we are quite happy that what you're already doing in order to monitoring what's happening at this moment, and we are very, very curious to see how post-COVID we are going to ramp up again, and we're going to look at your data again to see that. And maybe on the Intertraffic in 2021, we can have an analysis on that one, so they can show us also some nice pictures how we climbed back. Shall we agree
I
on
wanted
that?
to say one last thing before I guess my time is up. I want to say one last thing that's as an observation. The whole world has changed and is conforming to their government's requests in a dramatic way. So when we talk about locking in good habits, well, if you've got a good propaganda machine, and I mean that in a good way, in your country to really ram home the messages, then we've shown that we will follow, because we're doing it in huge numbers now. So if the message is right and the themes are right, and of course you make the choices available for people, then I'm sure we can lock in some of these measures.
Okay, that's a very nice and good positive note to end up with. And as I said, let's stick to that and analysis afterwards and look what the results are next year at the Intertraffic. Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Looking forward to meet you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for being there and keep safe.
Okay.
And healthy. Bye bye. With that,
bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for listening. Delay, we are going to the last speaker that we have today, and he comes from the Road Authority side from the province of Noord-Holland. It's Chris de Veer. He's a strategic advisor for smart mobility of this region of Noord-Holland. That's also where part of that's a part of the Netherlands where Amsterdam is located, and the Amsterdam Metropolitan area is already very active in smart mobility as well. So we're going to wait a few seconds for you before Chris is going to join us. And what I also like to hear from him, because as a road authority, he's already also looking at how to extend capacity in the future and do all that kind of stuff. And is this still necessary if we don't have traffic jams anymore? So he's specifically probably also informed on how the total mobility is going to change in the near future. So within Chris, just to sum up a little bit what we heard so far, that we do see these impulses of people that really are confronted with new behavior that we didn't see as possible a couple of months ago, and now all of a sudden even the most conservative jobs are already moving to working at home. So we have a few excuses less not to move towards a better mobility, and that might help as well. So let's see on the looks of on the position of the road authorities. Chris, are you already there? If not, you can pose me some question to me, maybe even. But we're going to have the thing is that maybe in between that I already can say that of course next year we do have an Intertraffic. At least we hope that a year from now this all will be over, and it might even be more interesting to look back at what happens around this day and how we can improve this mobility. Because I say it again, speeding up the mobility transition that's the mission of the Intertraffic. So it's going to be even more interesting if the speeding up gets speeded up at this moment. So let's hope to see you all next year. I think it's the 23rd to the 26th of March. We're going to have an Intertraffic. So the 23rd, we have the opening, and please put it already in your agenda. Because then we're going to also, probably one of the subjects will to look back at what happened and how we can learn from it. So no Chris yet. Maybe Joyce, we can also, because the theme of the Intertraffic of next year probably is very similar to what we already now, but we have an extra subject to discuss about. You probably look as much as forward as me to the next year's edition. What about all the other international editions of Intertraffic? Anything known about that yet, or is that still very insecure?
Well, of course, yes, of course, it's still very insecure, because we have to see what this COVID-19 virus will bring us. So, for instance, we have a show in the end of the summer, but will international visitors or participants still participate? Because are we allowed to travel? But even if we are allowed to travel, what we were just discussing, people are scared of using public transport, are scared to fly to another country. So yes, for sure, this will have its impact on the Intertraffic shows. But for Amsterdam 2021, I'm really not that scared, because we are a year away from now, and I hope that we will have some kind of maybe a medicine or for this pneumonia, but I think that people will be trusting the ways of traveling again, and maybe they will visit Intertraffic. So
My impression that it probably, if we indeed have the vaccine, a couple of minutes later, everybody will start booking flights, etc. We will be very quickly to the old fashion. So we will have, if the vaccine is there, but of course there are a lot of illnesses that we still haven't found a vaccine for. In the meantime, I got an excuse from Chris, but still he's here. Can we also hear you, Chris?
Sorry, guys.
Okay. Since we're going to make it a very quick interview, Chris, to my regret and our regret. Let's make a quick round because we don't want to keep people too long, and there will be new webinars as well from the Intertraffic. We still want to be the platform where people exchange information on the future of traffic. But getting quickly back to you, so your opinion, we just had, and I hope you could follow us, a lot of discussion of what will definitely change in traffic situations. What's your position on this one? Do you think we come out as a better traffic system, or share your thoughts?
First of all, I think two modes are going to suffer. So first of all, of course, public transport, because there's no way in which on the short term we can handle the 1.5 meters
distance.
And then shared mobility, of course, is also suffering because we are not safe yet, or we don't feel safe yet using another car, etc. I think two previous speakers went into that as well. One of the things we do get out of this, of course, is that we can work at home. And one of the programs we are looking into as a government, because I work for the local government or regional government, is that we can induce this and make sure people stay working at home from time to time. So not all the time, as we are doing now, but it's proven successful. Some of the connection.
Okay.
It's proven successful.
Just for a couple of weeks. It's just
so like you said before, why not try to get out the peaks? You know, don't drive in rush hours, for instance. Just stay at home, work from there, and then after rush hours go in.
Okay, but so Chris, you represent the province of Noord-Holland, and there's also the Amsterdam Metropolitan area as a road authority. So let me just ask you a question. On the one hand, you can expect that people wouldn't have their own car because they are a little bit afraid of public transportation, etc. If this is true, and it might remain a little bit. On the other hand, people work at home more. Are we going to see more traffic or less traffic? Because the one pleads for more cars and the other pleads for less cars or a little bit better distributed cars. Are you going to build more roads or less roads? What's your plan?
Well, that's of course a choice which our politicians have to make. I don't think that more roads are a good solution anyhow. Because every time we have built a road, we see that traffic increases until there's big traffic jam again. And this continues every time. So we need to have more sustainable modes of transport, and one of these is, of course, also work at home. So to just tell you about the province of Noord-Holland, we are in the northwestern part of the Netherlands. There are 2.9 million people living here. Amsterdam is a huge city in this. And we're working together with, for instance, the city of Amsterdam and the metropolitan region to see whether we can sustain this, at-home working success, and to make sure that we are, we don't go into our normal behavior again.
Yeah. So if you say. Sorry, Chris, but if you say influencing this working from home, does it mean for your own organization, or do you have also some means and some ways in order to and instruments in order to affect how other people do that working? What are your power in order to influence that?
Well, it's the power of persuasion. That's first of all, of course. I think a lot of people have become aware that staying in their cars and moving the way we did is not that sustainable, and it's not necessary anymore. So we can tell that to the people. The other thing is data. I think we can help a lot by providing the good data to people to see whether what's for their individual behavior, what's the best option. So that's what we already plan to do, but there's a need to do that more. And for instance, we can ask companies to make sure that you get a notification. It's not very reliable, the system, because it's very busy. For instance, stay at home, work at home, and then leave after 1 hour or something. That might be a good solution. And the data we have on our roads, we can use to do that.
Okay. About leaving after 1 hour is something that we also have to do. Of course, we want to stick to the time, despite we had some delay on this one.
Yeah.
Is there something you would like to share with us as a very positive reminder, or invite? Of course, we are welcome in your region for the Intertraffic next year. But is there anything that you see as a very positive thing coming up and a change, be it because of COVID or not, that you want to share with us?
Well, one of the things I would like to share is that let us try and keep on reminding that that working at home is a kind of new modality, and people should regard it as such. I think it's very positive if we incorporate this in our normal lives as individuals. And as a government, we can stimulate that by, for instance, give enough broadband internet to everybody. These kind of things are important to do. And I think it's very positive that we can use that as an extra modality now.
Okay, but it's not probably in your influence area, but you're going to shift from real physical infrastructure to more digital infrastructure.
Digital infrastructure and data are very important elements in this. So that's one of the main topics we should discuss about how to bring that further.
Okay, I see a very nice remark of, and I'll call his name, it's one guy named Salvador, that we're changing from wide roads to broadbands.
Yeah, excellent.
That's an excellent thing. Thanks, Salvador, for that
good
one.
Thing.
Because we are at the A10, the South Axis, we call it in Amsterdam. We are investing massively in order to range the capacity, but that might be the last of these huge projects. So what do you expect?
Yeah. Okay. Well, physical infrastructure is necessary, of course. And I think, but maybe the physical infrastructure for biking and footpaths are more important now. So we're investing in that happily now. And I think that's a good thing to do during COVID and after COVID periods, to stay on this path.
I think that's a very positive note to end with, because sorry, Chris, I would love to hear you further.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna give you a spot at the intro next year if we open up the Intertraffic. But thanks for being with us.
Excellent.
The thing is, a lot of questions came in. Also to all the people that raised the questions, thank you for that. We're going to transfer them and forward them to the people presenting. So we try to start up a little bit of a kind of discussion. So thank you very much for now. The end note was very positive that investing in bicycle path, of course, is something that we already did in the Netherlands for the last 30 years. But still, it has a lot of potential to even further invest in that one. And also, let's show some of these examples next year's Intertraffic, because that's always a no-regret action to invest in bicycle infrastructure. And what keeps us healthy in the Netherlands, hopefully, as well. Yeah, Chris?
Yeah.
Thanks that you made it in the end.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
With these words, I hope to see all of you again. Everybody who listens, thank you for listening and for looking at us. And sorry for the little bit of a hiccup, but I think we managed quite well. So please, people, keep distance, but also keep contact, especially if it's on traffic. Try to use the Intertraffic ecosystem in order to learn on all this change of mobility. See you next year live. It was an honor for me to moderate this one. And with this, I go back to Joyce. Joyce, are you in?
Thank you. So I want to thank our hosts, Carlo, and the speakers, of course, for their contribution to this webinar. And I hope you all enjoyed it. We just had a few hiccups, but we will work on that for the next webinar. And if this webinar may have inspired you, and maybe you want to share your views with our community as well, please let us know, contact us, and maybe you will be one of our speakers in the future Intertraffic webinar. Next to that, I still believe in face-to-face networking. There is actually no substitute for person-to-person interaction, for instance, during an event like Intertraffic. We do miss you all dearly and look very much forward to seeing you in March 2021 in Amsterdam. Having said that, we hope that these online moments with our community will contribute to Intertraffic's role in speeding up the mobility transition. So please keep a close eye on our website for the announcement of our next webinar. For now, please stay safe and take good care of each other. And we hope you will join us next time again. So bye.